Now it's official.
Now it's official.
Okay.
It's on the record, so watch out.
So, welcome back to the Escapist Corner. We are here with Adrian Bozman. It's me, Richard. It's Gerardo. And Orestes behind the camera for you watching the YouTubes. We are in Berlin, sitting in a hotel, and we're about to have the regionals coming to Berlin this weekend. For the guys at CrossFit, I guess it's already started a while ago, and the preparations and so on. But
they're year-round at this point. But
yeah,
That's a stop.
yeah. But before we go into the topic of CrossFit, let's go through the life of Adrian Bozman.
oh man,
I've done some of my homework, but maybe you have like a elevator pitch.
sure.
Or,
Yeah, I mean, how far back you want to go? I was born in Canada, moved to San Francisco when I was about 20 years old, and been in the Bay Area in California, around the San Francisco area ever since. That was in 2003 that I moved there. I was doing some personal training, managed to fall in with the CrossFit guys at the original Santa Cruz box and do my level 1 there. Started working at San Francisco CrossFit in 2006. Started working with HQ in the late part of 2007, and been just kind of immersed in CrossFit ever since.
Okay, so you've been 12 years at CrossFit right now.
I guess so. Getting close, yeah.
What was your background before starting CrossFit, sports-wise?
Not much. Growing up, I did a lot of activities. My brother and I, we did a lot of outdoor activities, hiking and mountain biking, skiing, things like that.
Typical Canadian guy.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't play a lot of team sports.
But like ice hockey,
I know, right? That's why they kicked me out, is I didn't play hockey.
Had to move.
Yeah.
That's usually my catch line with any Canadian. It's like,
right, yeah.
I played ice hockey. Okay, now we have something. But you never got into ice hockey. Is it because of where you grew up in the town, or?
I mean, a little bit. I just wasn't really, as a kid, I wasn't into organized sports very much. I did some gymnastics. Actually, that's probably the sport that I stuck with the most when I was a kid. Did that for a number of years. But organized, like team sports, didn't really grab me as much. I don't know why, but it just wasn't what I was interested in back then. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you study anything?
I did. I studied music in university for a few years, and quickly got to the point where that wasn't a smart move for me. I was not at a position that I would have been good enough to really pursue what I wanted to pursue with that. So
you had some kind of passion into music before starting that?
Absolutely, yeah. All through high school, I played the trombone. Wanted to be a symphony player. That was the end goal. So I played in the school band. I played in a lot of extracurricular bands. I had community bands, things like that. So I did a lot of that growing up.
Yeah. I was expecting you to say I was playing like death metal.
Well, then on the side, I played in some punk bands. But yeah, those.
Trombone.
We kind of get through Instagram quite a view of your
soundtrack. Yeah.
And that doesn't look very classical music.
It's all over the map, and it's that was actually probably one of the things that I enjoyed about music school the most. Was we had some really cool classes about music appreciation, and I feel like that's always been something that stuck with me. So I'm very open to almost any genre, and I'd like to explore a lot of that.
So I guess you got some kind of ear also for music because of that, like the appreciation of understanding how the composition of a song is and so on.
Yeah, to some degree. Yeah. It's filtered through the years. My theoretical knowledge is not as good as it used to be, but
yeah. No, I know. I played a lot of music too. Growing up, mostly punk rock. Never really learned theoretical stuff, but definitely that has brought me to something of like when I listen to music, I just hear all the elements that they turn together. If it's different tonalities or whatever, and like, this is interesting, and parts and so on. But
So wait, getting back to Martin, you know Martin played in Disconto for a long time, right? Do you know them, the Swedish punk rock band?
Disconto. No, I didn't know that band.
Yeah,
No.
check him out. Check him out. He's like, I mean, geez, I don't know when they started, but they're like the 90s, I think. So yeah, check him out.
Yeah, the 90s had some rougher bands in Sweden.
I think my Swedish background music is ABBA and that stuff. So that's all I got. After
Well,
The Cardigans.
Gerardo listens to the sounds every day in the box, so I guess.
That's true. Sounds a pretty cool band. There's a Chilean in the band, by the way.
Yeah.
In ABBA?
No, in the sounds. There's always a Chilean.
Oh, okay,
there's always a
okay.
Chilean involved. That's a kind of a catchfriend for Chileans. There's always a
Awesome.
Chilean involved
Yeah.
everywhere.
Somewhere.
So from CrossFit training, everything, how become? 12 years, long period. Are you still doing seminar stuff? You still running classes? Running seminars?
Yeah, so actually, as of this year, so January, I'm less involved in the seminars as I used to be. You know, it used to be almost every weekend, constant travel, and I did that for a long time, which is great. I mean, I got to see so many places and meet so many people that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
But this year, my responsibilities have shifted a little bit. We want to expand our online course offerings, and we need some people to manage that. So I've been taking on some of that responsibility, which means less time on the road. So a little bit different. It's kind of a new thing for 2018. It's nice to be home for stretches of time. That's not something I'm used to, so still getting used to that a little bit, but it's been great.
Yeah, I guess you get into more like a nomadic mode, where you constantly travel. I mean, for many people, it sounds cool and lucrative to be on the road and like see many places. But I guess, of course, you see a lot of. It's a bit different when you're in a CrossFit, but for many businesses, it's usually. Yeah, you see a lot of different hotel rooms.
Yeah, that's very true. And, you definitely do get to experience things that you wouldn't normally, which is great. But, when it is constant like that, there's not a lot of free time to spend in the places that you might want to spend some more time. And it is a lot of hotel room, gym, back home. Yeah. So...
just a routine like that would be. I just read the Spiel book.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, every Friday is Airport Friday.
Yep.
Travel, and Sundays back, Mondays
exactly
back into work. Because work doesn't stop Monday to Friday, so you just have to be working out the whole week. So
exactly.
It's a 7-day week.
So I'm getting used to having weekends, which is weird. My wife and I will be out for lunch or something. I'm like, what are all these people doing here? Oh, it's Saturday. That's what people do. So yeah, it's a bit of an adjustment, but it's been good.
Do you have any special memory from any of these seminars?
Oh man, I mean, so many. It's
what's the weirdest place you've been?
The weirdest place I've been.
Or the one place you say, wow, I'm teaching CrossFit here.
The first time that I actually traveled internationally to teach CrossFit, I thought was pretty mind-blowing. One of the first ones that I did outside of the United States was in Basel in Switzerland, and it was probably 2010, maybe something like that.
At Ramon's place?
Yeah, exactly. And it was before he's in the spot that he is now. It was this... He rented out a space that we could do the seminar at. It was like a town hall. Because his gym at the time, he had a business partner that I don't think they are partners anymore. Yeah. But they had this underground area. It was like in a warehouse that you go underground and then through 3 different back channels, and you finally found the little spot that they had dug out. It wasn't really appropriate for seminars, but yeah, that was pretty cool. And I mean, I just remember being in Switzerland and thinking, wow, this is my job, When I started doing seminars, at that time, there was no official intern program or, really kind of regimented way to come up on the staff. It was you got asked to help out, and you showed up a bunch, and, you just pitched in where you could. And eventually they told me they were going to pay me to be a part of it. And I was like, oh, great, okay. I wasn't expecting that, but that's awesome. Yeah. And, so to flash forward to being in another country and talking to people about CrossFit, if you would have asked me at the time when I first started, where do you see this going? I would have had no idea, Yeah. So that was a pretty cool experience.
Doing that in a park in San Francisco. And then going to
exactly. And I mean, that gym in San Francisco was pretty bare bones. You know, it was very low key at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You were working for Kelly at 2006, you said?
Yep.
So it was must have been really the almost first days of having his affiliate there.
Yeah, I think he opened in November of 2005.
Yeah.
And I think it was April 2006 that I joined him. And funny story about that, he and I didn't know each other at the time. A friend of mine who I did my level 1 with, who's also in San Francisco, Sean, he told me that a guy was opening a box in San Francisco, and I was like, oh, that's great, So we managed to go up one time together and met Kelly, and it was great. And we continued to exchange some emails, Kelly and I.
Was email that time?
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah,
it's cute.
It was still there. We had like a wire cup, just sent it across. But no, he sent me an email almost out of the blue that said, "Hey, I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks." He runs every year. I think he still does it. It's a rafting camp for kids with cancer. They do as a charity, and so they take them out and they take them on the river and go camping, and it's really cool. Anyway, he had to leave for that, and he didn't have anybody to replace him at the time. He didn't know anybody else in the city that was really doing CrossFit. I had just done my level 1, and so he asked me, "Hey, I mean, I know I don't know you that well, but can you take over for a few weeks?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And so I didn't burn the place down. So when he came back, he said, "Hey, he was still in school at the time. He had just had his first daughter, so he's very busy." Mm-hmm. And he said he didn't have the time to expand the program like he'd like to, and maybe I could come and help him out. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So that's how we.
And you were doing some PTing and stuff at the time, also.
Yeah, I was working at a regular Globo gym, just as a personal trainer, and so it was perfect because at that time I was right on the cusp of overstaying my welcome at the gym that I was training at. They were just about to tell me, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that stuff here."
So, making a lot of noise. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it worked out great.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I know you started a program, the flexibility program, right?
Yeah, I created a lot of the content for that, and one of our really great staff members, Ray Regno, has been leading those. Like I said, I've been off the road a little bit, so he's taken over the responsibility of teaching those in person, and he's wonderful. So if you get the chance, go see him.
He's doing the weightlifting too, right?
That's right. Yeah,
he does. He's in CrossFit Del Mar, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he exactly. He's down there a lot. He had an affiliate. I think it was CrossFit Stronghold, and I think just recently he's sold that. I think. But so he's based in the Southern California area. Yeah.
So this leads to a bit to the question: did you ever got into those thoughts that you should also open up an affiliate and?
It's a great question.
Do the Bozman?
At some point, like where I live now, my wife and we bought a house in 2014, and we have a garage, and I have a great garage gym now. I have a couple of people that come over a couple times a week, and they train, and it's really great. And I would like to affiliate my garage and have a low-key thing going on. But if you go way back, before I met Kelly, my goal was actually to open a CrossFit gym in a little town called Berkeley. Yeah. And then I met Kelly, and plans changed. Made more sense at the time to work with him. Mm-hmm. And then I got involved with CrossFit HQ, and got really busy with that. And it's always been in the back of my mind that it would be really cool to have a facility, but I wouldn't be able to do it the way that I'd want to do it with all the other things I have going on at the moment. So
I mean, with the travel, it's kind of hard especially if you're involved also with the whole structure that's been growing in the last couple of years. I mean, games started in 2007, and nowadays it's a global event that goes, as you were saying before, like year round. So we have the Open, you have the regionals. We travel how many? Because of the games, only how many days you travel around?
Absolutely. So, throughout the open season, it's 5 weeks on the road, pretty much constant. And then it's a month for regionals, and then the games a few weeks, So all said, it's 2.5 months out of the year just for games. And that's on the road. The planning that goes in behind that is obviously a lot more. So yeah, at some point I would love to get back to small-time affiliate. You know, maybe nothing as serious as like a full-scale gym, but it would be great to have that.
And that makes me think of that you have so much insight into so many boxes, and obviously you heard a lot of questions and so on from box owners, from people that want to start CrossFit and so on. What kind of knowledge would you try to take and do a bit different if you would do, or if you would make it like a suggestion to anyone who is trying to open up or is actually affiliate since a couple of years and you see like, hey, why is not everyone just doing this?
Right. You know, I was talking to Olaf last night at the gym we were at, and he was saying that, you know, his gym really focuses on longevity and taking the time to, you know, teach people foundational movements and then build up from there. And I think that's really great, you know. And it sounded like his community was less interested in competition or a high level, you know, CrossFit fitness, you know, as a competitive sport.
Less at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. And we had this conversation where I think sometimes people feel that whatever it is that they're doing is the way that everybody should be expressing CrossFit. And I disagree with that a little bit. I think that it's great that in 2018 there's so much going on that you can find your flavor, so to speak. I think that's great. You know, if you're 21 years old and all you want to do is just be the biggest, baddest, you know, fittest guy, you can find a gym where competition and high-level athletics is the focus, and that's great. If you're somebody who's maybe a working professional and you just want to be fit and healthy for your family and for your longevity, you can find that too. And I think, to me, what that suggests is that there's room for everybody, no matter what your take is on it. And that I think the most important thing for an affiliate owner is to just pay attention. Pay attention to your members. What is it that they want out of your facility, out of your staff, out of your gym? And if you can be in tune with that, you can do some really great things. I think it's hard to, in my opinion, it's really hard to come up with this codified list of what you should and shouldn't do. You know, obviously there's some things that they're going to be a bad idea no matter what. But for the most part, I think the better approach is to just make sure that you are always paying attention to the people that are coming in the gym and supporting what they need. And that may change over time, you know. The biggest mistake I see people make is they just stop paying attention to their members, and then problems ensue.
Yeah, because you know? I mean, even big boxes. I mean, average size of boxes. I don't have an idea of average size, but probably 200, 300. Let's say 450 members.
Yeah.
You can meet all these people. You know their families. You know where they work. You know, so it's a community still. It's a small base group. You don't have 5,000 members, and which is like global gym. Completely have no idea who this guy is.
Right.
So the moment you just lost that familiar contact, the guy says, hey, I'm just one guy here and my life doesn't really matter to these guys. I just go take my business to some other place.
Yeah.
Has to be, I think, one of the things that people value besides the coaching. The coaching is good and everything, but it's the sense of being part of something. Happens a lot here in Berlin for us that most of the people are from abroad. So we're not from here. And people looking for something the family looking for a group and something to belong to. And if you just lost that, if you just lost that contact, if you can create that thing, that bond, you have something way better than the fitness and whatever comes with it.
Absolutely. And you know, I think that's why you see the longevity of it. You know, you have people that in the United States, there's established gyms now. They've been around for 10, 11, 12 years, and you'll have members that have been at that gym for the duration of their existence. And why does that happen? You know, you don't see too many people that have that kind of longevity at their local regular gym, you know. And I think that's exactly right, is the community is huge. You know, your friends are there. You've got this built-in accountability and fun factor and all of that, you know.
It's interesting. Makes me think of also what kind of, because this is more like almost like a sports club that is getting created. So what kind of other businesses are there that actually could translate into this, or it could also have this kind of model and use this kind of, I mean, community is one thing, but first of all, people are there for the fitness and so on. But I think for people that are into some kind of entrepreneurial exploration right now, I think it would be interesting to look at other markets where, hey, where can I actually build a small community, not this big, huge startup focusing on the big numbers, but really, okay, how can I create something small, like a club of something that has this kind of value? And obviously, if you can combine that with some kind of CrossFit, I listen a lot to what Chris Cooper says in Two Brain Business, I mean, he's a lot into now mixing the startup scene and entrepreneurs into CrossFit, and I think he opened up like a coffee shop.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
at his gym or like above his gym or something like that, like a co-working space, so he can attract because I guess it's not a big town where he comes from, so like all the startups or people that are some kind of independent, they
create a hub for things.
Yeah.
It's like kind of bringing all the people together. You have this mentality of just doing stuff.
Yep.
And,
I've seen that a few times now. I think actually just recently in the CrossFit Journal there was a piece about a guy. I'm gonna forget, but it was somewhere in the southern United States. He's running for local government. It might not even be local, but anyway, he bought a building in the town that he lives in. It's not a nice building when they bought it, but they fixed it up, and now it's great space for them to train. And they're starting to do exactly that. They want to put a restaurant in the same complex. They have a shared workspace that they're working on. And I know that in Arizona, Peter Egid, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's been around a long time. Great athlete, great coach.
Yeah.
And they have plans. I think they just got approved from the city to build this huge complex with shopping market, local foods, all of that. And I think his gym, a few years ago, they bought land and they started to basically create like a food co-op where they grow their own food and then members get discounts on it and things like that. So you're definitely starting to see that power of the community be harnessed and expressed in other things, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Some business model that can create like a co-working space, the coffee shop, and the community farm or place to grow food is also growing in this one place in Belgium I read about a couple of weeks ago, and there's also one in, if I'm not mistaken, in Denmark. Okay. Which is building this like all factory transformed into co-working spaces with a CrossFit gym, with some restaurant stuff like that. So definitely, it's like you're pulling all these people together.
I mean, it kind of comes in. Also, comes back to that. I mean, CrossFit has taken now the direction into Fortune Elite Health, right? And if you want to create that basis, I mean, the base of the pyramid is the nutrition. And I also saw there was a journal about that also in the CrossFit Journal, and how many gyms just start from the top and instead of at the base, and but you can give people nutrition facts, and you can try to educate them, and you can try to be a hub of good influence, but at the same time, what happens is that if you live somewhere and it's like 10 miles to the store where you could buy the more healthy options, you're just simply not going to start to do that. But if you have that in the same facility, or you can somehow as a box get those foods or whatever to your box, so the members can actually pick it up there, is also quite a good option, I guess. Especially for those guys that are somewhere in the smaller cities and the rural areas. But what's your thought about this transition into the health?
It's it's interesting because I don't think I almost see it as it's not really a transition because I don't think it's really changed anything. You know what I mean? Like
it's just a communication.
Or I guess what the forward-facing element is. Yeah. Because I think anybody that's been around the CrossFit gym for any length of time, you'll obviously have the people that are interested in competitive CrossFit, and that's what they want to do, and that's what they're excited about, and that's great. But that's not the majority of the members anywhere, it's not even close. And I think anybody who's been around a CrossFit gym for more than a day recognizes that right away. This is more benefit for the regular person. Yeah. They have more to gain. They've got more to experience from that. And the high-level guys are great. It's nice to have some of those to show that this is what you can do if you choose to go, all in, so to speak. But it's not. I don't think it was ever the intent that was it. So I really don't see it so much of a shift of anything other than the cosmetic focus of what people see initially.
We see that. I mean, we see this change. You can see it in the for example, email today. You see like from every 3 stories, 3 are nutrition-wise, right? So my question to you is, how do you see the CrossFit Games? What's the purpose of now fulfills the CrossFit Games to do this new? It's not new. I know it's not new. But this new health nutrition part of it. What's the purpose? What's the focus of the CrossFit Games? How does it help into that communication?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think it's just highlighting the pinnacle, in the same way that you could have, we'll go back to a music analogy, right? Yeah. I can have a very, very healthy local music scene where I've got local artists and they're all doing great. They have gigs and people come out and see them and it's really supported. But then I still have the Led Zeppelins and I have the, whoever's at the top of that can tour around and be the showcase that, maybe there is an outlet for that as well. It's kind of a clunky analogy, but
I was hoping for you saying that no, it's going to transition to an eating contest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, maybe that's coming. But
best paleo bike cake recipe.
Hey, we don't know the events of the games yet. It could still slide in there. But no, I think the games is still
beans and deadlifts.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Danger. We'll hand out like a splash guard to the people in the front row. But,
judge from the front only.
Yeah, exactly. I think the games suit the same purposes they always have. It's a highlight and the spectacle of what is the high limit, the utmost potential. But I don't think that necessarily sets the tone for what has to happen. And hopefully that is what people begin to take away. Is like, hey, look, that 1% of 1%, it's an amazing thing what they can do. Everybody else that falls in behind that, there's still some pretty incredible things that come out of that, and the game's just the spectacle.
I think it's good to have it even as unrealistic as it is for probably 99% of the population. Yeah, like, oh, dude, I would love to go one day there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm 37. So it's impossible. I understand that.
Oh, come on, next year's your year.
Come on, 40s. But you see people that don't know really much about CrossFit, because at the beginning I think a lot of people that started CrossFit just research everything. They know every name, every story, and they read every book and stuff. But now it's like getting more mainstream, and they just, I don't know who these guys are. And it's just, I'm doing CrossFit, and they see this, probably, okay, the games is this thing. This is like the pinnacle. But you can, people get to the box and they see a coach and say, "But you go compete in regionals."
You have no idea.
Yeah, sure, you have no idea. Please go with me on the weekend and you will see. Yeah. So this shock is like, whoa, this thing is. Yeah. But that's that 10% of the population that can do this stuff. Mm-hmm. But 99. Once again, 99.9% of the people is eating good, longevity.
Yep.
That's a one kind word.
Longevity. You got it. Yeah.
Longevity in Spanish. Yeah, but I think it's a marketing, no? Right. A lot of it.
Yeah, to some degree, I think so.
I mean, it's a goal, right?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. I had another thought on that. Now it's gone, but maybe it'll come back.
But were you ever attempting or thinking like, I'm gonna try it next year?
Oh, no way! I've never been fit enough. Like I'm very competitive. Like you ask anybody who works out with me or is friends with me, like I'm a very competitive person. It's just in my nature. I don't know why. But I don't kid myself into thinking that I have the discipline or the drive to do what those guys do. And I've never really been interested in that, nor do I think I have the ability. So, I like the Open is one of my favorite times of year because I can compete on my level with my friends. And,
how much preparation goes into that?
The Open? Yeah. What do you mean? I train all year for it.
Row against boss. I mean,
okay, yeah.
Do you have like a pre-season for that?
Great question.
I'm really good with that.
It's funny because when it started out, it was so casual that we didn't. And now it's not that it's like a really regimented thing, but definitely as like Christmas time is coming around and I start thinking about, the Open's around the corner, it's like, okay, I'm going to start eating a little better. I'm going to start going to bed a little earlier,
I saw some transition there. I think it was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was a clear difference in performance in the row versus boss.
It's funny because I think this is the 8th season that we've done it, and I think we have 4 victories apiece at this point. So, there's been some years where Rory has just come out and destroyed me. There's been some years that I've come out and done pretty well against him. Yeah. So it's kind of up and down, and we've both been through some things, in our lives that hindered training or helped training or whatever, and so it's kind of interesting to see over the years that it is still pretty even though sometimes on the day of it doesn't look so even.
Puts in the workout. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
He came hard this year.
Oh,
right?
man, he was so fit this year. It was great. I mean, I got hurt, which sucked, but I think he would have had me. I really do. The first event, the first 2, I was pretty convinced I would take him, and he crushed me. So there you go.
What happened actually for you?
Yeah, I was. It was weird. I was in my garage, my home gym, and I was squatting. It was early in the morning. And I was stepping out of the rack with a back squat, and I just hyperextended my spine. It was like a really weird thing. I wasn't even squatting with the weight. I just walking it out, and I seized up. The whole thing dropped the weight, couldn't stand up. All the classic kind of back injury stuff. And so I was pretty worried about it. It wasn't getting better after the first few days, so that worried me a little bit. So I went in and got some X-rays, and long and the short of it was there was no permanent damage. There was no damage to the bones or the discs or anything, which is great. So the doctor suspects that I just sprained a few ligaments around the L1 vertebra. Which is great. There's nothing permanent. He said, 4 to 6 weeks, you should probably be fine. And then once the muscle spasm started to die down a little bit, it was pretty good. But
it's interesting how the body works, how it protects you. If something even small happens, it's kind of, especially around the spine. Boom.
Yeah. You only get one, so...
Exactly.
But it was just bad timing, I was happy in the sense that it wasn't anything serious. Yeah. I've never really had to deal with a lot of injury. I've been training hard for a long time, never really had any issues, which is great. So on the one hand, it was great that it was nothing serious. It's just bad timing to be in the middle of the Open. But, hey, I've got how many more years left, So 30, 40, we'll see.
I was wondering before that, because we always see the athletes and how they train and how they prepare for the regionals or Open or even the games. How is the judge preparation for an event like this?
Oh, great question.
Because it really matters, your other judges.
Yeah.
They can really, really change the results of the way it goes. How did it go, the preparation for that?
Well, I can't speak to, the people that we have on site on the floor that come through the regionals. Most of them have been here for years now, which is great. We see a lot of faces coming back. I don't know how they personally prepare, but, speaking for myself and the team of head judges that go around, we start as early as we can. Once Dave has the events basically locked in, then we try to talk to him about, if there's anything specific he wants for the year or for that particular competition, and then we just start talking through it as many times as possible before the event starts. So we'll get on a call once a week for weeks leading up, and we'll go through the script. We'll try to poke holes in it. We'll try to come up with questions that the athletes might have in anticipation of the event. And then we'll revise it, and we'll come back the next week and go through it again and do that again and again and again until we get to a point where everybody's comfortable with the events and we feel like we can run it with a minimum of confusion or questions or issue, you know. But I'll tell you, it's funny because every year, no matter how many times we rehearse, no matter how prepared we feel, as soon as you throw a body of athletes at it, you know, it's always a little different in performance than it is in practice.
Did you have many surprises during the regionals or the games where athletes are like doing something that is
once
not really,
in a while? Yeah, once in a while it happens. Yeah, once in a while. For the most part, especially nowadays, you know, like most of the movements we have are pretty standard. People, they know what to expect. You know, it's like they know what a wall ball looks like. You don't really have to explain it. You know. For some of the oddball things like, you know, handstand walking or something like that, it's still newer. Yeah. So sometimes you get some things that are a little out of the ordinary, but for the most part, people know what's expected, you know.
Could you disclose the background behind, for example, the handstand push-up thing? Because that's been obviously a big theme. We always, obviously, we have a couple of athletes out there that are pretty sad. Yeah. And but yeah,
it's like me. Anytime a heavy lift comes up, I'm sad.
Yeah. No, but what's the how was the discussion leading up to like changing the standard? Yeah. I mean, first there was a standard, and then you changed it, and then you changed it again. Yeah. I mean, I have my theories and blah, blah,
well. You know, really, it just starts as a conversation. Yeah. So the year previous, we had the tape line and the box, and we started thinking about it, and we thought, well, it's a little redundant to have both. Yeah. You know, if you have a tape line, you shouldn't need the box, so let's think about getting rid of that. And we weren't really happy with the initial tape line. We liked the concept, but in practice, it still seemed too variable from individual to individual. So we thought if there was another way that we could standardize that, and so we started a conversation with about 7 or 8 of us being HQ staff and experienced head judges in the games. And man, we probably tested, I don't know, 7 or 8 different methods of measurement. We even had one that was really clever. Actually, it was like you get to the top of the deadlift and measure the distance between the deadlift bar height and the ground, and then you triangulate that with your height, and that gives you a number. And you know, we had all sorts of things that we were looking at, and the one that was most accurate for most people was the one that we ended up with. Yeah. You know, we did our best to measure a variety of different body types. We tried to go for as many tall athletes, short athletes, long arm athletes, short arm athletes, tall guys with long arms, tall guys with short arms that we could find. And for most of the time, that was the one that was accurate. And we understood going in, you know, you have a competition with 500,000 people, there's going to be some outliers where it's tough to cover everybody, but that was the best solution that we could come up with. And so, you know, for any of that stuff, the goal is never to exclude anybody or to create a standard that's so unattainable that it doesn't work with the competition, you know. And so I was a little disappointed, actually, in the response of some people. Yeah. You know, there was a lot of people, the majority of people, I would say, took to it really well, and they're, this is more challenging. For most people, it was, right? And they were like, wow, this is more challenging. It made me go a little slower, but you know what? That's the nature of the game, and that's part of what we're here for, is to be challenged. And they went with it and took it gracefully, and that was great, you know. But there were some people that I found it really unfortunate that they wanted to immediately jump to the opposite conclusion and say, this excludes me, I can't do this, HQ is unfair. And they, you know, for the most part, didn't try to contact us with the diligence proving that they couldn't do it, because we're not going to be unreasonable. You know, if you anatomically cannot meet the standard, well, we want to know about that. Arms. Exactly. Well, no. But, you know, if you can send me a picture of, hey, here's my measurement, here's me up against the wall, look, I'm clearly, you know, not able to meet the standard, well, we're going to work with that, you know. But that's not what happened most of the time, which unfortunately leads you to speculate about, well, why wouldn't somebody do that? You know, if they legitimately could not meet the standard, why wouldn't they just document that and send it to us?
Yeah,
So.
I mean, from my point of view, I've seen a lot of athletes doing the handstands and so on, and you really start to see, it's a new standard, right? So it's whatever you decide it might be, in that sense that, okay, before you had some more slack, especially if you look at, I mean, for me, I think it's fair in that sense that, okay, now even short athlete had to work a bit harder on the handstand push-ups, you can really see how it translates if you don't take care of some stuff during your training, like and you neglect to actually fix your flexibility if that's a problem, or mobility. And
well, let me take it one step further. I think that for movement like the handstand push-up, you have so many people train it in a way that is the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And then when they're forced to do something more difficult, they're caught off guard. And I think that's a backwards way to approach your training. If I was a competitive athlete, I would purposely try to find ways to make it more difficult, so that if the standard became easier than that, well, hey, great, then I'm ahead of the game.
It was because of this workout, this standard. There was one discussion. I was reading, the guy said, hey, I have a 2-minute Diane, and I cannot finish one round of handstand push-ups, so the standard is wrong.
Yeah.
And the guy was playing, no, the Diane is wrong.
Right.
So it's the other way around to it.
Well, exactly. But you see it. You see so many people, they're like, I can do 30 unbroken handstand push-ups, and it's this, you know. Okay, well, that's true. Maybe you can, but what happens when you're forced into, hands are narrow, deficit, all of these things? And I think the best, you see they do try to challenge that end of it. Even if it's a difficult movement, they're looking for ways to make it more challenging, not less challenging. And that, I think, is the real separator.
But still, even in competition, this is for a judge, I think it's very hard. When you're competing, I think I heard from Ben Bergeron, and it totally makes sense. When you're practicing, you try to make things accordingly. You have a movement pattern, but when you're competing, you're going to try to cut every corner possible in the way. Just for a judge, how hard is it? Because you can just think about, okay, probably, like I say, wall ball is easy. Let's say the muscle up, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, how high my feet are going to go, so my turn is better. If I'm going to more push up or more dip.
Yeah.
So do you? Of course, I think you realize, okay, these guys might try to work out here, but sometimes is it possible that or has it happened that one guy says, "Oh, what the is it that a rep or no rep?" Kind of.
Oh, absolutely. For sure, but and I think that's interesting because that's part of the nature of sport. Sometimes a conversation comes up where people they ask, will you ever get to a point where you automate the judges? It's just all done by some specialized equipment or video or whatever. Frankly, I hope that doesn't happen, because I think it would be the equivalent to taking a referee out of any other sport. I think it's going to start to erode what is compelling about that sport, and that's the human element, And I always put that back on the athletes as well, that I understand in a competitive environment, I understand maybe better than most in a competitive environment, that they're going to start to get as close to that standard as possible for the sake of efficiency. That makes perfect sense. But at the point that you get really close to that line, you have to understand that now you are forcing it to become a judgment call. And the judgment call of that person is always going to be somewhat variable. You try to get as uniform a playing field as you can, but you can't eliminate the differences completely.
It's so fast also, right?
Yeah, and so part of that conversation that athlete has to have with themselves is, okay, if I'm going to try to not get away with something, but be as close to the standard while still being within the realm of fairness, the closer I get to that line, the more I am putting it in the hands of my judge. So is that trade-off worth it to me? Is that faster in the long run?
Yeah, it hasn't happened in every sport. I guess I'm going to try my judge and see how it goes. And but there have to be this adaptability to say, okay, it's no, okay, then it's no, then I go back to my previous thing.
And again, you see the best competitors can react to that, and they will be fine. Like I always used to use Rich Froning as kind of the standard. which is easy to do on a number of levels because he's, so good. But I remember distinctly judging Rich at one of the open announcements. I think it was 2015, maybe.
The burpees and...
Yeah, the thruster burpee in San Francisco, where we had the women and the men going at the same time. You remember that one? Mm. And I was judging Rich, and I can remember where he was so in tune with me that I would just look at an area of his body, like I'd look up at his elbow, and his next one he would lock out more than the one previous. I'd start looking at his hip for depth, and he would sink the next one a little bit deeper. Yeah. And, that's how in tune with what was going on he was. And if I did call him on a rep, there was no argument, there was no hesitation on his part, he'd just do another one. Yeah. And the best are the ones that can just accept that and move forward.
Yeah. Instead of putting energy into...
Exactly.
Discussion,
yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you are on the floor, what are you looking at directly? Are you looking for judges, or are you looking at the athletes?
You're talking about my role specifically? So my role specifically at the regionals level is more managerial. So there's always, at this point, we have 3 head judges on the floor at once, and our job is to oversee that, number one, the competitive flow is happening the way it's supposed to, athletes are in the right place at the right time, and then that there's uniformity amongst the judging crew. So, we don't have one person in one lane that's insanely strict and somebody on the other end of the field that's a little bit more lenient. I'd rather it all be strict or it all be lenient, as long as it's uniform, because we're trying to create the most fair, competitive atmosphere that we can. And so our job really is just to consistently keep our eyes on the bulk of the judges to make sure that uniformity exists. So where am I looking? Well, I'm overseeing the floor. We have 2 other judges that have specific lanes that they're looking at. And then we're in constant communication with the judges that are in each lane as to whether or not, okay, that's strict enough, that's not strict enough, and then we'll talk to people post-event as well, like, hey, those squats, you let those couple go, they should have been a little deeper, or, that guy was looking pretty good, you didn't need to call those, et cetera, et cetera.
Judges have right-away feedback and say,
exactly,
okay,
yeah. As much as we possibly can, we try to keep that communication. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And how do you, like, when you get into situations now, because the games are getting more and more competitive. Yep. It's real, and not only competitive, but it's people really train for that now because there's a really
it's a career.
It's a full-time job. Yeah.
So it's about sponsorships. It's about obviously the games also, but so if you go to the games or not, means a lot of sponsorship deals and stuff. And how do you handle that kind of pressure?
That's a good question. It's funny because it's not that I don't feel a lot of pressure. I mean, there's ultimately a lot of responsibility that I'm, it's undeniable. But at the same time, it's like I think that those of us that are involved, we understand that because we're on the other end of it. Like I can remember getting into wasn't an argument necessarily, but it was a passionate exchange, we'll say, with an athlete who was not happy with a call, and it happens from time to time, and I understand that. And his point to me was like, Boz, you don't understand, I've worked all year for this, and my response to him was, you don't understand, I've worked for 10 years to try to make this a fair, competitive event, So the flip side of the statement that the athletes, it's a full-time job and that they're all invested in doing this, so are we. We have full-time staff, and that's what we do too. So, yes, the pressure is absolutely there, but I feel that...
Do you take cold showers and stuff like that?
But not for that reason. That's unrelated. Yeah. I cry myself to sleep every once in a while. But no, it's it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's not as if the people that are in the positions of leadership just arrived there by chance. They've all been there because they've been involved in the games for a long time, because they've been part of the events. They have the experience to handle those types of situations, and it's not to say that they're always handled perfectly, and it's not to say that we have all the answers all the time for every situation, but at the end of the day, like, we're committed to making sure that the competition is as fair as we can possibly make it. And that's always going to be the commitment from us, So regardless of the situation you find yourself in, just taking the time to make sure that the resolution is fair for everybody, that's something we're always going to try to do,
Yeah. Do you have any how you say in German is Vorbild? Do you have any?
Not on me. I don't have any on me at the moment.
No, it's.
I left them at home.
You're asking me about German.
No, do you have any people you look up to, or examples, or like a role model that you're?
I mean, I guess the short answer is yes, but in what context? Like, what do you mean?
Well, in general, who do you look up to, like in a, I don't know, morally, or if it's sportsly?
Okay. You know, I guess I have a lot of inspiration from the people around me. I think that the people that we get to work with in CrossFit HQ and CrossFit Games, every single one of them has aspects of their personality that I think are so admirable, and I just feel lucky to get to work with them. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I draw a lot of inspiration from the hard work that people are willing to put in to make these events great, and I guess to piggyback on the comment of the athletes working hard to make the games and all of that. It's like the volunteers and the people that are willing to support these events on the local level, on the international level. I get a lot of inspiration from that. You know, so I mean, I could go down the list and talk to you about more people that are more in the spotlight, and it's kind of cliche, but I idolize so and so because of X, Y, and Z. But personally, I get a lot more out of the volunteer that shows up at 6 a.m. and is there until 8 o'clock at night, and doesn't complain about having to work a long day, and they're always willing to do whatever is needed to make sure the event is running smoothly. Like that, that's huge. I get a lot more out of that than I do from particular individual, I would say.
And so we go away from people we meet or so, but do you have any books or something like that really pivoted you into something that you don't think you would go to?
Oh, geez. Not off the top of my head. I like to read a lot, but I don't have anything.
You don't have that one book that.
No, I don't. And frankly, I'm a little. I don't know, man. I'm kind of a disagreeable person when it comes down to it. I'm polite. I'm nice, but I'm disagreeable from time to time. And I have a hard time believing. Maybe this is just my own personal problem here, but if somebody says, "Oh, this is the book," I'm immediately skeptical of that, because I think that life is complex and rich enough that you can't leave it to a single source in most cases. I mean, if somebody's going to say like the Bible or something, okay, well maybe, because it's so, it's been around for thousands of years and there's some depth to it. Okay, I get it. But, somebody wants to talk to me about this business book that they just read and it's like their number one book. I'm like, I'm a little skeptical, So I don't have a single book. I'd have to think about that really hard before I threw out a recommendation.
Last book you read?
The last book that I read, what are
you reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book on Norse mythology right now by Neil Gaiman, which is really fun. I am finishing a book called The Hacking of the American Mind by Robert Lustig, which is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm trying to think what else I've read recently. I read a biography on Teddy Roosevelt. It's pretty good.
That's not a specific topic, but just go around.
No,
books that you think, okay, this might be interesting to read.
Absolutely. I think that life is rich, and I think that people should be open to expose themselves to many aspects of it.
So I guess best time to read is when you travel, or
definitely, yeah. That's one of the hidden pleasures of plane rides for me. Is they can be tedious and a little, but it's like you're locked in a space. There's not much else to do. So it's like, okay, there's no other thing for me to be doing right now.
Something just came to mind. How often you look for books that totally oppose your views? Or magazines or something like that?
From time to time. I think that's important too. I think increasingly people, I don't know what the word is. It's like they choose their own adventure, and their own adventure is only.
Facebook chooses for you.
Exactly right. Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's like it's all self-selected to the point where you're just so insular. So I do think that's important. I don't know if I do the best job of seeking things out outside my perspective, but I love to argue.
Yeah.
I love to.
You're a judge. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, I love to debate. Just sitting around talking to people about things. So I would like to think that I do seek out alternative opinions to the ones that I currently hold, and I do think that's really important. I think it's.
Yeah. I guess I've read mostly health books.
Okay. Yeah.
Or diet books or something like that, nutrition, science, whatever, and when you start to look at science reports and stuff like that, you start to get confused. I remember the law. What's the Matthew's law or something like that? Where it's probably totally wrong law. That's like don't jump on the street while traffic. No, but that the more you know, the less confident you feel.
There's like an inverse relationship there, right? It's like when you're ignorant and uninformed, you're so confident.
You have to run marathons. That's the thing. You have to run.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Learning I probably shouldn't, but is it good for run?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I think that's so interesting about science, and specifically like health sciences and exercise science, is that number one, they're always behind the curve of what the people on the front line are doing by nature of the time it takes to conduct a study and all of this. The process is never let's run the study and then based on that study let's do what the study suggests. It's opposite of that. You have somebody who's seen great result. They have a group of people that is experiencing something favorable, and then somebody says we should find out why, and they try to extract what that reason is. So it's the method that almost always comes first, not the science, and that's what people forget, right?
Within sports now, CrossFit has been in constant battle with sports science, for example.
Well, and then the second piece of that, which I think is easy to lose sight of, is that most studies are not broad enough to really draw broad conclusions from. And so you get a really niche study that says, okay, when we take 100 athletes and we subject them to this, something happened. This is that thing that happened. Ergo, everybody should be doing what we did. It's like, no, you're jumping too many conclusions based on the study.
They're very specific, and many times they're not even tested in humans. So we know this. We know sugar is bad.
Right.
We can know sugar is bad. We cannot conduct that study in humans.
Sure. Yeah.
It lasts for 40 years, and we see the effects of it. We have to just go as tiny more, and we can just expand our knowledge on many things.
Yeah. It's exactly right. It's so specific, but people want to take that specificity and extract something general from it, and that's where you start to lose the applicability.
I think something, going back to Robert Lustig, is that something he at least has done. I mean, he's a medical doctor and everything, and he understands a lot how the body works and so, but he can't do the experiment by himself. So what he has been doing is been looking at, okay, what has the consumption pattern been the last 40 years, and then okay, there's a lot of smoke here, and that's kind of the epidemiology he's doing.
Thomas also said in one of the case against sugar, for example, he says we don't know exactly the cause because we cannot find or run.
Yeah, nobody's interested in doing it. Yeah,
but in every experiment, every study that goes, there's a smoking gun, and sugar has it, but we don't know. And sugar is present in the scene, so we don't know. We don't know if this guy. But
and it's funny, getting back to your point about challenging your own personal beliefs and that sort of thing. That's something that I always thought was interesting about diet specifically, was that you could cite a study that could justify almost anything in your diet, and that's unfortunate. But what I always thought was more compelling and a way better way to start structuring diet specifically, but you could do the same thing with training, is to find the things that everybody unanimously agrees on, And so nobody is going to disagree that, generally speaking, intaking more vegetables is going to be a negative. Nobody's going to argue with that. And so, okay, if everybody on the whole dietary spectrum is going to agree on that, maybe you should consider it. It's the same thing. It's like fish oil is another one that I forget who it was that famously said, like there's no pathology on earth that fish oil will have a negative impact on. You know, I forget, there's a quote about that, and it's like, okay, well, if everything out there can be positively impacted, there's nobody that can slight this. Well, hey, maybe it's worth pursuing. You know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. We obviously we try to help people and pivot them into good decisions, and we also try to do our best to find resources for that. But as Gerardo said, let's also try to read the things that speaks against it, and many times it's just it's very hard to find anything that is even good that speaks against it. So
but in a general basis, we know exactly what you were saying, Adrian. Vegetables are good, exercise is good.
Right.
So just stick to those. Whatever, you put in over that, okay.
Honestly, I feel that is really the role of the coach, is to buffer the average person from all of this chaos and all of these conflicting messages into something that they can take home and actually implement. And I really think that is the skill set, because at the heart, being healthy and fit is not complicated. It's really not. You can make it as complicated as you want. You can add as many layers to it as you need. But at the end of the day, it is not a complex process. And that was always, to me, the most powerful thing and the most appealing thing about CrossFit was like, hey, if you have a little bit of space and the willingness to work hard, you can make a dramatic impact on your health and well-being. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that under the guise of, well, I'm staying current with the science, or I'm staying current with the most popular methods currently. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe you are, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't over-complexify the basic foundational building blocks, because they're not hard to grasp. You know,
you can go really geeky, but in the basic level, it's super simple.
Yep. And again, that coach, you know, if you have the whole stratosphere of everything that's going on, and then you have the person down here who has a job, responsibilities, family, they might not be as interested in deciphering all of this chaos. There needs to be an intermediary, and that's where the coach is. You know, the coach says, hey, I've filtered all of this information for you. Here's what you need to do. And it's easy.
The easy solution.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you miss Canada?
You know, it's funny. I actually just got my United States citizenship in August of 2017. It's been a long process.
Because you got married, or?
No, I mean, I've been married forever. I got married in 2004. But just you have to hold a permanent residency for a long time, and then, you know, it's X number of years until you're eligible. So it's just taken a long time. Yeah. And I'm really proud of that. Like, I'm very proud to be an American citizen. I love Canada too. It's a great country. I still have a lot of family that lives there. My brother lives there. My mom lives there. I have a lot of aunts and uncles that live there. Yeah. Beautiful country, you know. So I do definitely miss certain aspects of it, but United States is home for me.
Yeah.
So.
Can you hold both passports?
Yes, yeah. So I've got both at this point.
What's the biggest difference between Canada and the U.S., you would say?
That's a good question. I mean, United States is humongous.
Yeah.
You know, landmass-wise, Canada is bigger, obviously, but... you know, you're
better
talking about totally. Hockey culture, that's the difference. No, you know, the U.S. is such a big country with so many people, and so many people from such diverse backgrounds, that I think it's really cool to get that kind of mix of cultures and people. And Canada certainly is a diverse place as well, but it seems a little bit more homogenous to me now that I've lived in the United States a little bit longer. So that's a little bit different. I don't know. Culturally, there are a lot of similarities. Canadians don't like to admit that, but but there's definitely a lot of similarities there, and I think that the two countries are pretty culturally close, you know, which is good.
There's no as a surprise when you watch that. Like, okay, mostly the same language.
Yeah.
Mostly everyone watched the same shows.
Sure.
News.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And I mean, you know, you're always going to find regionally specific things, but at the end of the day, I think that's why, you know, it's been the largest undefended border for, you know, a long time now, and that's part of the reason is.
I would like to know your opinion on. I once read about Canada could have the American technology, French cuisine, and the British culture.
That's a really interesting statement.
And they got the British cuisine, the French technology, and the American culture. What's your stand on that?
I'd have to think about that a little bit. That's funny though. Yeah, British cuisine. Yeah, that's probably true. The French technology. I don't know how much. I don't know much about the French technology, so I can't speak to that. And the American culture. Yeah, maybe.
Everything could have gone so well for them.
It's just like one Rubik's cube flip away, right? It's
yeah, great. I don't know. I don't know how it's with you time-wise, but
I should. Yeah, actually, I should probably. I hate to cut it short.
Yeah, one thing. Which event are you really looking forward for the weekend?
Oh man, I think that the first day for the individuals is great. Like I think, taken as a whole, it's a really excellent test because it's so polar opposite. The first event might not be the most spectator friendly, but it's going to be
probably why it's first.
Exactly, that's exactly why we put it first. We're like, we know it's not going to be the most exciting event, but it's a great test. So but yeah, the first day, I think the combination that's exciting for me, and I'm really curious to see how the teams do with the handstand walk. I know most of the individuals, they're such high level that I don't see too many issues with that. But, the teams, there's still some variability. So I'm curious to see how they navigate the handstand walk obstacle.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good thing because now the teams are smaller.
Yes.
So, okay, it's a bit easier in that sense for the teams now to find
less weakest links.
Yeah, exactly. So that was actually the whole goal behind that, was to try to create a competitive level that's a little bit more even. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Thanks, Adrian.
My pleasure.
You post one workout almost every day, right, on your Instagram?
I've been trying to follow the main site. So I would say 90% of the time I'll do the CrossFit.com workout. Yeah. And then I'll use Beyond the Whiteboard to record that, and then I'll just put that up on Instagram with whatever I happen to be listening to during that workout at the time. So.
Okay, cool. A lot of trombone.
Yeah. Try to minimize that as not during the workout. That's after.
Yeah. Thanks, and good luck during the weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Hopefully we see each other on the floor.
Yeah,
not
I'd
on the
love that.
competitive floor, but.
A couple of US Masters.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.